I'm sorry, the nurse said. Which wife are you? For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. Excuse me? The nurse looked up from the computer. Her expression changed. I'm sorry, that came out wrong. No, I heard what you said. She glanced toward the hallway where they'd taken my husband. I'm Laura Bennett, David's wife. Yes, I have Laura Bennett here. Then what exactly are you asking me? She hesitated. David and I had been married for 31 years. There was no first wife, no ex-wife, no divorce. The nurse lowered her voice. I just want to make sure we have the right contact information for your husband. You already said you have my name. I do. Then whose name are you confused about? She looked back at the screen. I really shouldn't have phrased it the way I did. Before I could ask again, someone behind the desk called her name. She stepped away. I stood there holding David's jacket, telling myself it had to be a clerical mistake, an old record, something. Then the elevator doors opened. A woman stepped out. She looked around my age, maybe a little older, with gray in her dark hair. She looked like she'd gotten dressed in a hurry. She walked straight to the desk. I'm here for David Bennett. My fingers tightened around his jacket. The receptionist asked her name. Eleanor Hayes. The nurse who'd spoken to me looked up. She recognized the name. Then Eleanor turned and saw me. She stopped. Are you Laura? How do you know my name? She glanced toward the surgical doors. David told me. That was when I stopped believing this was a hospital mistake. How do you know my husband? Eleanor took a breath. It's complicated. Apparently. Is he already in surgery? I stared at her. You knew he was having surgery today? Yes. How? He told me. When? A few days ago. Then she asked, did they remember about the reaction he had to cephalexin? I looked at her. What reaction? Years ago, he broke out in hives. His face started swelling. I know what happened. Okay. I asked how you know. She looked at me. I was there. I remembered that emergency. It had happened about 12 years earlier while I was visiting our daughter. David got sick and ended up in the emergency room. He told me an old friend had driven him there. I never asked the friend's name. That was you? Yes. The nurse came back and confirmed that I was David's primary contact. I would get the update after surgery. Before she left, the nurse explained that Eleanor's name was still attached to an old emergency contact entry. Eleanor didn't interrupt. She didn't ask to be added to anything. She didn't claim any right to David at all. She just asked where she could wait. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. We sat on opposite sides of the waiting area. I lasted maybe 2 minutes before I got up and sat across from her. You knew about his surgery? Yes. You were there when he had that allergic reaction? Yes. What else do you know? Eleanor looked at me for a moment. The scar under his chin. I went still. David had a thin white scar just below his jaw. Who are you? Laura. No. You came to my husband's hospital knowing I'd probably be here. You know things about him I've never heard your name attached to, so tell me who you are. She looked down at her hands. Then back at me. I'm someone David should have told you about a long time ago. Were you married to him? No. The answer came quickly. Then what were you to him? For the first time, Eleanor looked like she didn't know how to answer. Finally, she said, I wasn't his wife. She paused. I was supposed to be. I knew David had loved someone before me. He'd told me that much when we were dating. He said it had been serious and that it had ended before we met. He never told me her name. You were engaged? Yes. For how long? About a year. And how long were you together? Almost 5 years. 5 years. When did it end? Before he met you. How long before? About a year. That mattered. There had been no overlap. Eleanor hadn't been waiting somewhere while David dated me or while we planned our wedding. For the first time since she'd walked in, I could breathe a little. Did you marry someone else? Yes, I was married for 17 years. So Eleanor had gone on with her life. Maybe that was all this was. A painful relationship from long before me, something David had never wanted to talk about. Then why are you here, Eleanor? Because I knew he was having surgery. That's not what I asked. I know. I watched her. When was the last time you saw David? She didn't answer. Eleanor. Last November. I stared at her. What? I saw him last November. I remembered the day. David had gone out on a Saturday afternoon. He said he was meeting an old friend. He came home carrying takeout because he knew I hadn't eaten. I kissed him. We ate in front of the television. I never asked who the friend was. That was you? Yes. Have you been seeing my husband for 31 years? Not the way you're making it sound. Then tell me how it sounds. We've stayed in touch. Sometimes a long time goes by. And sometimes it doesn't. No. I leaned toward her. Were you sleeping with him? She flinched. No. Ever? Not since before you met him. Are you telling me you've never had an affair with my husband? I'm telling you exactly that. I wanted to believe her. I just didn't know why I should. Then I remembered something from November, a restaurant charge I'd noticed because the place was nowhere near home. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it. I took out my phone and checked. There it was. I showed Eleanor the name. You were there with him? Yes. Why there? It was near where Tom used to live. Who's Tom? Her expression changed. My brother. What does your brother have to do with David? A lot. Then explain it. I will. When? She looked away. Just not yet. I didn't like that answer. What did you and David talk about last November? Tom. And? You? My stomach tightened. What about me? He said you'd been doing too much. He was worried about you. What else does he tell you about me? She didn't answer right away. That was enough. Then I thought about my mother. I don't know why that was the first thing that came to me, maybe because those months had been the hardest of my life. My mother spent the last 4 months of her life in our house. David cooked for her, changed her sheets, sat with her when I needed 20 minutes alone in the car because I couldn't let my mother watch me fall apart. Did he tell you about my mother? Eleanor looked down. Yes. What did he say? That you were exhausted. I felt my eyes burn. He was worried about you. That hurt more than I expected. Not because David had complained about me. He hadn't. He'd been worried about me and he'd taken that worry to her. Did he ever tell you he loved you? Eleanor looked at me. Laura, answer me. Yes. When? Over the years. I looked away. But not the way you're hearing it. Of course. I'm not trying to play with words. Then don't. She was quiet. So why did you stay in each other's lives? Eleanor looked down at her hands. Because before David left, he promised me something. What? That he wouldn't disappear completely. I stared at her. You asked my husband to promise he'd stay in your life? Yes. Why? Eleanor didn't answer. Not long after that, the surgeon came out. David was doing well. The procedure had gone as expected. I thanked him, waited until he left, then went straight back to Eleanor. What exactly have you and David been to each other all these years? Friends. No. We were. Friends don't need to be hidden from wives for 31 years. I agree. That stopped me. You agree? Yes. I stared at her. David had told Eleanor about my mother. He'd worried about me to her. He'd told her he loved her. He'd promised he wouldn't disappear. Maybe Eleanor wasn't another wife legally. But I was starting to wonder if that was the only difference. Maybe I was the only woman with the marriage certificate, I said. That doesn't mean I was the only wife. Eleanor's expression changed. Don't do that. Do what? Turn this into something it wasn't. What would you call it? I wouldn't call myself his wife. He told you he loved you. Yes. He made you a promise and kept it for decades. Yes. And you expect me to believe he kept coming back because you were just friends? Eleanor stared at me. You think he kept coming back because he couldn't let me go? Didn't he? No. Then why? She looked toward the surgical doors. He didn't leave me. I frowned. What does that mean? It means I didn't spend 30 years waiting for your husband to choose me. She looked back at me. I was the one who made him leave. Her brother's name was Tom. He'd been 22. Their father died when Tom was young, so Eleanor had spent years looking after him. By the time she and David got serious, David had become part of Tom's life too. Tom trusted him, she said, sometimes more than he trusted me. What happened? One night, Tom called David for a ride home. David went to get him. But they argued. Tom had gotten himself into trouble again, and David was tired of watching Eleanor be the one who always had to fix it. He told Tom I couldn't keep rescuing him, Eleanor said. Tom got angry. So did David. Tom walked away. And David let him. Eleanor stopped. There was an accident later that night. She didn't describe it. She didn't have to. Did David cause it? No. Was he with Tom? No. Then why did he blame himself? Because he could have driven him home. I understood that kind of guilt, the kind that lives inside one thought. I could have done something different. Did you blame David? For a while I blamed everybody. But did you believe it was his fault? No. Then why did you end the engagement? She took a long breath. Because knowing it wasn't his fault didn't make being together possible. They tried to stay together after Tom died. They couldn't. Every time I looked at David, I remembered that night, Eleanor said, and I knew he saw Tom when he looked at me. So you stopped loving him? No. She looked at me. That was the problem. Eventually, Eleanor ended it. David decided to leave town. I told him to go build his life, she said. And that was exactly what he'd done. With me. And then? I asked him for one thing. What? I told him just don't disappear completely. And he promised? Yes. Now I understood why. It wasn't a secret vow that they'd find their way back to each other. It was what two people asked for when grief had already taken enough. But that only left me with a harder question. If that's all it was, why didn't he tell me? Eleanor looked at me. I can't answer that for him. Did you ever ask him to? Yes. And? He said he would. So you knew I didn't know. Eventually. How long? Long enough. You both had 31 years. I know. I stood, then stopped. There was one more thing. Did you ever regret ending it? Eleanor looked at me. Sometimes. Did you ever ask him to come back? Her face changed. Once? I sat down again. When? Years after you were married. By then, David and I had children, a house, bills, school schedules, a whole life. Eleanor's marriage was falling apart. One evening, she called David and asked him to meet her for coffee. Then she said something she'd never said to him before. Sometimes I think we made a mistake. I could feel my body tense even though the conversation had happened almost 20 years earlier. What did David say? He said, maybe we did. I gave a short laugh. Of course he did. Let me finish. I didn't want her to. But I did. He said maybe we did, but I made another choice after that. I said nothing. I asked him if he was happy. And? He said yes. Just yes? Yes. Not that the children needed him. Not that leaving would be complicated. Not most of the time. Yes. What happened after that? I told him to forget I'd asked. Did you ever ask again? No. Did he ever try to come back to you? No. All morning I'd been terrified that I was about to learn my marriage had been a consolation prize. But Eleanor had opened the door. David had chosen not to walk through it. He chose you, Laura. I looked at her. Then why did he hide you? Eleanor didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her handbag. I brought something with me this morning. She took out an old holiday card and handed it to me. You kept this? Yes. The fold had gone soft with age. Inside was David's handwriting. He asked how Eleanor was doing. He mentioned our son starting middle school and joked about our daughter refusing to eat anything green. Then near the bottom, I found one sentence. I still haven't found the courage to explain us to Laura. She deserves better than that. I read it twice. He hadn't forgotten. He knew I deserved the truth. And he'd chosen silence anyway. What did you say when you got this? I told him to tell you. And he didn't. No. I handed the card back. David had chosen me. So why hadn't he trusted me with the truth about what I was choosing? I didn't confront him that afternoon. He was awake after surgery, but barely. When he saw me, he asked if everything had gone okay. Then he asked if I'd remembered to eat. That almost broke me. Because he was still David. The same man who'd hidden Eleanor from me was worried that I'd skipped lunch. The next morning, he looked better. He knew something was wrong almost as soon as I walked into the room. What happened? I sat beside the bed. Eleanor came yesterday. He went still. Not confused, not surprised. He knew. You told her about the surgery.
Yes.
Why? He looked toward the window. I was nervous.
Anne?
She knows that about me. So do I. I know. Apparently she knows quite a lot about you.
He didn't answer.
Her name is still listed as an old emergency contact. From years ago.
I know. What is she to you now?
David looked down.
Family.
Is she?
In a way.
No. He looked at me.
No more answers that can mean whatever you need them to mean. That's how you kept this hidden.
He was quiet.
I don't know what else to call her.
Then start with the truth. So he told me about Tom. Most of it matched what Eleanor had already said. But hearing David tell it was different. More than 30 years later, he still remembered what Tom had been wearing the last time he saw him.
I know I didn't cause the accident, he said.
But you still blame yourself.
He looked at me. Knowing something and believing it aren't always the same thing.
That was enough. I understand why you stayed in Eleanor's life. He looked surprised. I understand the promise. I put the old card on the table between us. What I don't understand is why you kept her out of mine. David stared at it.
She kept that?
Don't. He looked back at me. I was going to tell you. When? Before we got married. That hurt more than I expected. What stopped you? Something you said. I remembered the conversation. We'd been talking about old relationships one night before our wedding. I'd told David I didn't care that he'd loved someone before me. But I'd said something else. I told him I couldn't marry someone who still had one foot in another life. You were going to tell me about Eleanor that night? Yes. And you decided I couldn't handle it. I got scared.
Of what?
That you'd think I still wanted her?
Did you?
No. Were you still in love with her? He didn't answer right away.
David!
Yes. The word hurt even though I'd already heard it from Eleanor. He saw my face. I loved her. I didn't want that life back.
Those aren't the same thing?
No. How was I supposed to know that if you never told me she existed? You weren't. At least he didn't try to argue. Why didn't you tell me after we'd been married a year?
I should have.
What about 10 years? He looked down. By then, I wasn't just confessing Eleanor anymore. I was confessing 10 years of hiding her. Every year made the next year harder. So you kept going.
Yes.
Last November, I said, you told me you were meeting an old friend.
She is an old friend?
Exactly. He looked at me. That's how you did it for 31 years. You didn't need big lies. You gave me just enough truth that I wouldn't ask another question. David closed his eyes. I told myself nothing was happening. Nothing sexual. Yes. And that was enough for you? For a long time, I made it enough. Why? He looked at the card. At first, I thought I was protecting what we had. And later? His voice dropped. Later, I knew I was protecting myself. There it was. Not Eleanor. Not Tom. Not the promise. Himself. From what? From this. He looked at me. From seeing your face the way I'm seeing it now. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then I asked the question I'd been avoiding since Eleanor stepped out of the elevator. Do you love her? David looked at me. Yes. It still hurt. But she's not the woman I wish I'd married. Then what is she? He struggled with that for a moment. She remembers Tom. She remembers who we all were before that night. He stopped. When I talk to her, I'm not wishing I had that life back. I'm remembering it. And me? His eyes met mine. You're the person I built my life with. That sounds convenient.
I know.
You chose me? Yes. Then you should have let me choose you too. He stared at me. You were afraid that knowing about Eleanor might change my answer, so you made sure I never got to give one. His eyes filled. I know. That's what you took from me. I'm sorry. I believe you. He looked at me. And I believe you loved me. For a second, I saw relief on his face. That's what makes this harder. The relief disappeared. If you hadn't loved me, I'd know exactly what to do. I went home alone. Nothing in the house looked different. I thought about the terrible coffee David used to make when we were first married, and how eventually he learned exactly how much milk I liked. I thought about my mother dying in our house, and the things David did for her when I had nothing left to give. Eleanor didn't make any of that false. My marriage had been real, So was the lie. The next morning, I went back to the hospital. David was dressed and waiting to be discharged. He watched me carefully. "Are you coming home?" "Yes." We both knew he wasn't asking about the ride. Before we left, I sat down. "I need you to understand what happens now." "Okay." "No hidden contact." He nodded. "No half-truths because you've decided the whole truth might upset me." "Okay." "And if there's anything else you've spent years deciding I don't need to know, this is your last chance to tell me yourself." "There isn't." I believed him. That surprised me. But belief and trust were no longer the same thing. I looked down at my wedding ring. Then I pulled it from my finger. David's face changed. "Laura, I'm not leaving you today." He said nothing. "I'm also not forgiving 31 years today." I put the ring in my purse. "I don't know what this marriage looks like after this." He swallowed. "Okay." "And you don't get to rush me because you're sorry." "I won't." I stood. "We're not deciding 31 years in a hospital room." We went home. The next 2 months were strange. David stopped deciding which truths were important enough for me to hear. He started answering the question I actually asked instead of the easier one beside it. Then one Saturday morning, his phone rang. He looked at the screen, then at me. "It's Eleanor." I waited. "Answer it." He did. She wanted to know how he was recovering. The call lasted only a few minutes. I stayed in the kitchen. He didn't put her on speaker. I didn't ask him to. When he finished, he told me what they'd talked about. For the first time, Eleanor existed inside my marriage as a person instead of a secret. I still didn't like it. But I could live with something I could see. A week later, I asked Eleanor to meet me at the restaurant where she'd seen David the previous November. It was smaller than I'd imagined. Bad coffee, ordinary tables. Nothing about it looked like the setting of a secret life. "Did you think I deserved to know?" I asked. "Yes." "Then why didn't you tell me?" "At first I thought David would." "And after you knew he wouldn't?" Eleanor looked down at her coffee. "I told myself it wasn't my marriage." "Was that the truth?" She was quiet. "No." "Then what was?" I was afraid. I almost laughed. David had used the same word. Eleanor rubbed her thumb along the edge of the cup. I called it respect because that sounded better. David had called it protection. Eleanor had called it respect. Both of them had meant fear. 3 months after David's surgery, I woke before him. I went downstairs and made coffee. Too strong. Exactly the way he used to make it when we were young. When David came into the kitchen, he stopped. My wedding ring was on the table. He looked at it, then at me. He didn't say anything. He'd learned that not every silence needed to be filled. "When I married you," I said, "I thought I knew what I was choosing." He looked down. "I know. This isn't me saying what you did was okay." "I know. And I'm probably going to be angry about it again." "I know." I looked at him. "You're allowed to say something else." He almost smiled. "I'm working on it." I picked up the ring. "I can't change what I didn't know then." He waited. "But I know now." I slid the ring back onto my finger. David's eyes filled, but he didn't reach for me. Not until I reached first. The nurse had asked me which wife I was. For weeks I thought that was the mystery. It wasn't. There had only ever been one wife. The real question was whether I still wanted to be her once I knew the truth. And this time, when I chose him, I knew what I was choosing. What would you have done if you were Laura? Could you forgive 31 years of silence if you believed the love was real? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you want more stories about the choices people make, the secrets they keep, and the truths that change everything, subscribe and I'll see you in the next story.